Hey there, baseball fans. Welcome to another edition of the Prep Baseball Middle Carolina podcast. I'm Brandon Hall. Today, joined by two of our area scouts, Zach Borowski, kind of in the Central Triangle area, and Aaron Reimer over in the Eastern section. And gentlemen, high school baseball has started. We're off and running. We've been running around like crazy watching games. How are you guys doing?
Good. It's a big week for everything. You got the ACC tournament. You got high school baseball. It's a great week for sports fans around here.
Doing well. Glad to be here.
We've already had some intersectional matchups. I know I got a chance to see some of the what they call the county clash, which was Mecklenburg and then the Forsyth County schools. And then Mecklenburg had spring break last week, or they're in the middle of it now. I can't track it all anymore. And they actually went out to see you, Aaron, and you got a chance to see some of the Charlotte teams. Just real quick impressions, because it's not really on the agenda, but it kind of popped in my mind. What's initial thoughts after seeing some of those schools play against the schools in the East?
Huff and Myers Park, two of the better teams. Myers Park, buddy, they are physical. Huff, real balanced lineup. Matthews at the top, but after that, they got Guzman and Nesta. They got some dudes that can get it done.
Yeah, I like when teams do that and gives us a chance, because we're going to jump right in now, try to get into some of the things that we're going to talk about as we're going through the show. But our Power 25 has been updated. And, our grade on our preseasons, if the season holds the way it started, our grade on our preseasons, D, C-. Zach, thoughts?
It looked like my school grades. I thought that was overachieving. I don't know. I think we do a good job at this of picking the best players, and sometimes maybe we just don't pick the best teams. They doesn't always equivalent to the same thing. Elite players don't always equivalent to wins early. Hopefully they equivalent late, or else we're gonna look like about my 2.0 GPA in high school. So
it was interesting watching some of the scores roll across, and obviously the big one, dropping from number 1 to number 6 was Charlotte Catholic. And it was one of those things. I think anybody can get beat on one day. You get the right guy on the bump. You make a defensive error. All of a sudden you're in the 5th inning and it's tight. Those one-game scenarios, there's a lot of things that can happen. But they got beat in a 3-game series. And, when they're running out, 3 top-end, high-level arms, and they got matched up with a really good club. And Cuthbertson jumped from number 11, to number 5, just ahead of Catholic here. And Cuthbertson, made a run to the Western Regional Finals last year, dropped a tough series, TC Roberson, but the lineup's not in question with them. There's some big bats in there. There's some athletic guys. They play decent defense. It was just a matter of, is the depth on the mound going to stretch and be good enough? And for that week, it was. I think Christian's going to, or not Christian, it was Catholic. Where did Catholic drop to? As I'm looking.
6.
There they are. They are right behind. I had Christian marked here. But they're going to bounce back, and that line is going to get going. But again, it's that frailty of a one-game scenario, which we see in the postseason. And, how is that going to stack up? The team that impressed throughout the week was Conley. They were at number 2. They moved to number 1, 4-0 record, playing really, really solid clubs.
Yeah, I'll see Conley this weekend, kind of interested. I'll speak on Catholic just because I saw him at Grace. I was the guy there. I was telling them, it's hard being the hunted all the time. And for Catholic, with all the names, all the hype, they got video guys on the field. It is a different atmosphere for them. And they got to get used to taking everybody's best shot every time, whether it's a Tuesday, a Friday, a Saturday. They all want to beat the ace. They're number 1 in every ranking around or 2. And it's something you deal with, and you kind of learn with it on the fly. I kind of had to go through it when I was coaching. We had the top team in the state, and, we're going up on a Tuesday, and somebody's midweek arm is their Friday starter trying to beat us. And it's something different. They got a huge roster. They got a lot of guys. They got as much talent as you could ever need. They just got to figure out how to win, and you got to figure out how to take punches. You either want to be the hunted or you want to be hunting. So it kind of helps them out a little bit if they want not to be the main focal point and start chasing teams down again. Kind of gives them that leverage. But if not, they got to figure out how to be the hunted and take everybody's best punch early.
Yeah, and you know a lot of times, and you guys coached for a long time. I'm sure you did the same thing that we did. But we look to see how other programs that are of similar stature or statures that we want to be, how they react to scenarios. You know, Georgia. You know, I'm a Georgia football fan, growing up in Atlanta, and following that program for a long time. But they're coming off 2 national titles. Kirby goes to the SEC Day conferences preseason a couple of years ago, and his initial statement is, "We will not be hunted. We will be the hunters. Nobody was coming after us because we are going to do the chasing." And putting it out there, and I guarantee that whatever the speech is on that day, that mantra has been living in camp, has been living in the off season, in their preparation. We will be the hunter. We will be the hunter. We were going to be on the front foot. We're going to go forward. But you don't think about it until you get to that aspect and that point where you're chasing for so long, and you're playing with that chip on the shoulder, and now you're getting some accolades, you're getting some pub, you're getting some positivity from around you. And Saban called it rat poison, and there's no doubt that it can actually lend itself to that. Reimer, as you were going through this, how did you deal with that and dealing with some of the clubs that you had?
Man, when you're that good, you expect to win at the end of the day.
Yep.
And until you actually do lose, you just expect no matter what to happen, it's going to be okay. So taking 1 is like, 2, now it's kind of a wake-up call. That's when I thought it got real fun, because you get to really – every little detail now matters. And I think them guys are going to get back to work and be all right.
Yeah. And, the other thing that popped out for me in watching, and, we have an article that went up this week. We posted the new Power 25. We have an article that goes with it, kind of dissects some of the things that happened, some of the schedules being played, how some of the Power 25 reacted, some teams that fell out, some teams that moved in, and how that came to be about. I've told multiple people already, because we do get a lot of responses on this. Hey, what about this club? Hey, how did this club fall out? How did this club fall? And this, as much as any other year, it's very volatile in terms of there are good teams not in the Power 25. There are teams, and there are teams every year that are going to have a chance to win state titles that may not be in these initial rankings. And they'll continue to get better, because there is an aspect of what we do of, initially we're plugging in who are the better players, who are the better pitchers, who's the deeper lineup. But team, that aspect of how guys gel, accepting roles, that's hard for us to get kind of ascertain until we kind of get into the year. But I did like, Charlotte Christian played a very good schedule. We got questions on them. Man, they dropped 2 games. How did you guys not bump them all the way outside the top 20? The games they lost, they lost to Wesleyan Christian and then Cardinal Gibbons. 2 other teams I think they're in the top 10 right now. They beat Grace Christian. They're playing an extremely difficult schedule. They beat Weddington, and so they're going to be rewarded for that. And the other thing we have to think about too is how do pitching matchups set up. Zach, you have talked about this and being, kind of, I don't want to say an industry leader, but you were good at looking at it and going, hey, we're going to throw our 3, you're going to throw your 1, and then we're going to match up our 1 with your 2 and our 2 with your 3, and let's see how it plays out.
Yeah, I mean, you try to look ahead. I said this, I say that in the beginning, and we got our face beat in the first game of the year. You try and plan it, and, some of it, I ain't going to lie to you guys. If you got pro prospects, you're throwing them on Tuesday. It's if you want your guy to get signed, you're throwing him on a Tuesday. For all you guys that don't know this, that's kind of what happens. The ACC guys, they're going to win out against a high school right-handed pitcher 90, 93, 95% of the time. They're going to State, they're going to Carolina, they're going to Duke. However, on a Tuesday, they don't have to go see somebody's bullpen arm. They're going to come watch a high school kid. They're going to get a lot more games than on a high school guy. So for you, for a lot of people that don't know, high school guys that are pro prospects throw on Tuesdays. If they're throwing on Fridays, it really hurts their stock just because people can't see them. Now, when you start trying to pair it up and mix and match, was I good at it? I don't know. I mean, my closer was 90-94 and was a third rounder. That really just helps. I don't know if I was a genius, but I liked winning games at the back end. And when you have pitch counts, you're going to have to throw a second guy. So for me, it was always I wanted my best arm to finish games. And for me, it was on Tuesdays we threw the guy that threw the longest. So that way we had 46 pitches for our closer, because that way he could come back on Friday. Friday guy usually threw 4 innings, which means we had 75 pitches, because that way he had 3 days of rest. My reliever threw the same amount as my starters, 2 and 3 equal 5, and they threw the same amount of innings. It was just a different way to piggyback it. And if you got arms, like, it's just something you always kind of like having. You like having that arm, or like we used to call it take me home. Like, I just hand the ball to the guy, say take me home. That means this game was over. We're about to win.
Yeah, a couple points off that. One, Reimer, remind me, we're going to clip that, the clip of I don't know if I'm a genius. We're going to clip that. We'll make that go viral.
I just want all y'all to know I have a 4.0 in college. My high school game might have been trash. I'm summa cum laude from the University of Memphis. You can clip that too. 4.0. Just remember that. College number 7.
We did it when we were building out our rotation. Friday nights, and college baseball's evolved over the last 10 years. But Friday nights, you ran your guy out there, and your guy was going to throw to his pitch count, because you really didn't have the depth to manage games 3 straight days with a 25-man roster. Everybody knows 35 or 40-man rosters. But when we would travel, the league would have a rule of, hey, 25 guys are active. And so we saw Liberty last year. I'm not positive who they were playing, but their Friday night guy was not on the active roster. You have to turn it into the umpires. You have to black out the guys that aren't active. They just made a mistake. He throws pitch 1. The other team comes out, hands a lineup card, and goes, "What's the deal?" League forfeits the game. The game's over. And so whoever they were, both Friday guys turned around, or the Friday guy for Liberty was done. He couldn't throw for the weekend. It's on a roster. The team they were playing turned around through their Friday guy on Saturday. So, but that was the way you built it. You had that guy there. And then as I was in that process, where you really started to see the game evolve was, closers were a big deal. We're going to get to our closer. Our closer is this, but you had some guys with some teams that made runs. Wichita State did a really, really good job of this in the 90s of, their best arm was available anywhere from the 3rd to the 9th. Whatever the highest leverage situation was, he's going to come get the game under control, because you had to stay out of big innings. You could limit a team for 2, throw a 0 behind it, the game's back under control, breathe, and let's go. What you couldn't do is give up a 6 and then a 2 and then a 3 and then a 1. All of a sudden, it's 25-0 or whatever it's going to be. So you have to get that stop, and that's, Rice did a really good job of it, and they won a national title, and Coach Graham was there for a long time, and they always had a guy. Their best arm, as soon as you got in a scoring position in the 3rd, the 6th, or the 9th, that dude came out. And then he would just settle the game, and then you would let it roll. Chapel Hill had one. It was Surhoff, the left-hander. He just threw a disappearing fastball, and I remember we played them 3 straight times. We'd loaded the bases, in like the 2nd. The next game we loaded in the 5th. The next game we loaded in the 8th, with nobody out. And he came in and just threw the disappearing fastball for 3 hitters and got them out of the inning. And that team has a chance to make the run to Omaha, because now, as good as their starting pitching is, they also have a guy in the middle of the game or the back of the game where we know we can control the game. And then once the game's back under control, now we can mix and match, and we can spot up and manage how we're going to use guys. The elite teams then have another power on the back end. Their last guy, he may not have the pitchability or the stuff, but he's got something that he does that's going to get outs and going to get a lot of them. So, that ability to kind of build from the back forward. We've seen some high schools try to do that. I don't know that it's caught on completely, because even in the high school game, that 7-inning game, you get matched up against the wrong dude, you better get off to a quick start. Throwing a 0 in the first matters. And, Aaron, you've probably been in some games, but talk a little bit about, managing some of those playoff situations where, you're facing, an elite arm and you're getting your club ready. How do you settle into the game? How do you get the first 0? How important is that first 0 versus trying to go, okay, it's going to be a long game, and I know we're going to have to win the 5th, 6th, and 7th, but I got to get there first.
Yeah, the big thing is, the depth at the high school level is so much different. I've had guys where I'm like, this kid on his 450th pitch of the day is better than the next guy I got. I mean, just is what it is. And then I've had teams where – we rolled out day 1 a guy and said, hey, when you get in trouble, we're going to the next guy. And next guy knew he was up. And then if he got in trouble, we're going to the next guy. coaching the game, you kind of get a feel about how many runs you're going to score, and you kind of match it to the arms you got. And so, you can manage it that way. Different ways, different scenarios. You know who you got next week. You know who you got next game. All that stuff kind of comes into play. So there's a bunch of different ways to do it, and it can go week to week, game to game, series to series.
It's a really good point. The high school coaches, I think, have to adapt as much as anybody else in the game. Pro rosters, college rosters, for the most part, college guys, we got a chance to build our roster. We could build it the way we wanted to build it for the most part. You still got to find talent, mix and match to your talent. But there's a formula in terms of how you think you can win, and then how you're going to recruit to match that formula, and then can you execute that formula? High school guys, we look around, and there's a lot of coaches that won a lot of games that live in prime areas in terms of they get talent, and talent fluctuates in there. But we can even look at those guys and go, man, they've won with really offensive groups. They've won with top heavy, star laden, talented rosters, but the middle and the back end maybe just okay. And they've won with guys where they honestly probably had too much. We're seeing, I think that's one of the things Charlotte Catholic, Coach Hull's going to have to deal with a little bit this year. D.H. Conley, and they're going to deal with a little bit just the amount of talent. Greenville Rose or Jay Rose is doing it right now too. How do they keep all those guys happy? How do they flip the lineup? How do they flip the pitching rotations? The other thing you're seeing too, it's different even from Zach, when you were doing it, you're seeing some of the stars, quote unquote, the higher level pitching guys. It's March 10th right now. They're still building up pitch count. So some of these guys that are, supposed to be, winning the bulk of games and taking care of some of the bulk of the innings, they're still on 40, 45 pitch counts. And so that's probably different from some of the things you dealt with, even with some of the guys you had come through.
Yeah, I was really heavy on early scrimmages. We would play, we try to get 3 or 4 in before the season, even if we played ourselves twice. But during the week, we were still scrimmaging if we played 2 games that week. We were having a third game against ourselves, just trying to catch up and get everything. Our pitch counts are probably a little bit different. I think by the time we were for game 1, we were at 60 or 65, which for our 2 arms, that should be able to.
Did we lose him, Reimer?
I think we did.
Yeah, the people have had enough. We'll see if we can get him back on stage here in just a second. But it's part of technology. It's what we deal with, being the technological gurus that we are in this baseball world. So we'll get him back up if we can. But we'll move forward. Go ahead and start talking a little bit about our next topic, which is the class of 2026 rankings update. That class is being updated today. They're going to drop about the same time. So once this podcast is out, those rankings should be live. And we've had some shuffling. And so this isn't a huge overhaul with the 2026s in terms of, we saw those guys in the summer. At the end of the summer, we make a big overhaul with the rankings. We get them polished. We get them upright. We see them a little bit in the fall. Some of those guys are starting to back down a little bit. And then we jump ahead into the preseason. And honestly, you were a lot of the preseason events. We're not seeing a ton of 26s. A lot of those guys are starting to be a little bit more dedicated, if they're still available, to spotlight events where the schools that they have direct interest in are at. But we still are pro case and some other events like that. We do see some of these 2026s. What did you think, Aaron, out of those 26s that were there? Welcome back, Zach.
I don't know what happened. I got a full Wi-Fi. I'm just sitting over here talking, and then you guys are gone. I'm just I don't even know if it's going on. I don't know if I'm on the camera. I don't even know if you heard me. I was just going, and I'm well, maybe I need to refresh this real quick. But I got a full bar of Wi-Fi. I don't know what happened. Maybe it's you guys.
Reimer, go ahead on the 26s.
Yeah, the one, I got to see Matthews. I see Rep Britt quite a bit. But from the pro case, man, Chase Kiker, that dude is a dude. I saw a bunch of really, really good hitters, and his round stood out to me at the pro case.
Yep.
And you guys tell me he's not even a hitter. But that dude is good.
It can depend on who you're talking to. I know, we took him to the All-American game this past year in the fall, and he was a pitcher. He pitched in the game, but, shooter and, talking to me and talking to some area guys, talking to some national guys, there was enough interest. We're going to let him hit. The one thing we're sitting here looking at going, we don't want to have happen is we bring them as a pitcher and then they get drafted as a hitter and they end up in the All-Star game as a hitter. So, it was something, trying to figure out what do we do. So we got a chance for him to hit and go through that process. I think there's guys there, but I know there's been early reports that fastball maybe has taken another jump. We saw Super 60, I think 93, 94. I'm going off memory a little bit, so it's on his profile. But the guys that walked away from the Super 60 went Kiker was Kiker. It's easy in terms of pitchability. The frame is durable. You're just trying to project what's the frame got left in it. But every time we keep saying, hey, maybe the frame's locked up, maybe the frame has gotten to a point where we don't know if any more is coming, he adds another mile or two an hour. So, Zach, what are your thoughts on Chase as he's kind of started off his spring season here?
Yeah, I got to spend a couple times with some guys on him, got to have some good conversations. I ain't going to lie, he's in the running for one of the best hitters in the state. Heard some reports he's touched 97 early. It's one of those things where for him, he's going to have to prove he's a starter. The body-wise kind of projects that, he could end up being a big-time reliever at some point. So for him, it's just proving that he can be a starter. Like if he can hold that 94, 95, touch a 6 early and then settle 2 to 5 for the rest of the game, that's really going to help him out. But right now, I'm not sure there's a better player in the state of North Carolina than Kiker. I'm not sure if there's a game that is a must win. I'm not sure if he's not the number one pick in the state of North Carolina. You want him on the bump, you want him in the box. If I'm going for
I'm
one
going to flash this up here because we do have movement between. It's still there. We do have movement in the 2026 class. I'm going to go ahead and put it up. There it is. And the first thing that jumps out, and you're talking, Chase Kiker was our number one player. It's been for about a year now. We actually bumped Alm ahead of him. And I'm going to get into the mechanics of the rankings here in a minute. But I think what you're saying has a lot of validity. He may very well be the best player in the state. He may be the very first player taken in the state in terms of high school talent. One of the things that we're looking at as we get to this point with this class is it's not just about how they line up in the state. A lot of the things that we do with guys early when they're freshmen, sophomores, even into their junior year, we take the state rankings and it transfers into our overall rankings with our national stuff. At this point with this class, now the national stuff starts to play into our state rankings a little bit. So, and it's not a deal where we're taking a guy and going, oh man, we're going to jump him way above this. And now the grades are out of order. Really, when you look at our top 5, 6, when you look at our top 7, those grades are very similar. We could put Cameron Tarkenton at 1, and there could be a case made for that. You could put Alex Hoffman at 1. There'd be an easy case made for that. So there's looking at how this plays out on the national stage is how do all these right-handed pitchers, Kiker, Hoffman, Britt, Tarkenton, O'Rourke, Rumbly, and even down into D'Amico, McCray, Stutzman, to about that point. So we're 19 deep in our rankings. All those right-handers, there's reports of those guys being north of 93, 94, 95 miles an hour. So the arm strength, that it's elite in terms of what we're used to seeing, but it's the same way across the country. And so when we start stacking the right-handers nationally and looking at them and how do they fall, there is going to be position players taken ahead of pitchers. There's less risk on position players in terms of, compared to the right-hander. There's more bang for your buck in the position players because there's so many right-handed pitchers that are getting to the big leagues now because they all carry the fastball. They all understand spin and things like that. So moving Alm ahead of Kiker wasn't necessarily a deal of us going, man, Alm is 1 and Kiker is 2 and Isaiah is 3 and Jackson. There's some of it's a balance between trying to get some position players up towards the top because of the way the draft has historically gone. Now, we may get to the end of this spring and we may go, Kiker, James, Hoffman, Britt, Tarkenton, O'Rourke, Rumbly, Mazingo, McCray, Stutzman in some order, and our first 9 or 10 guys are pitchers. Probably not going to happen. Just there's some talented position players there. But that's a possibility because of the depth in the right-handed pitching market. And James is a little bit of an outlier because he's left-handed. Thoughts on that, Zach? Because I know I'm explaining around it, but I know people are gonna look at this and be like, okay, how did this happen? What's going on? What's the big way that this kind of starts and ends, and what does this mean for the draft?
Yeah, I mean, in the big scheme of things, like if you're a right-handed pitcher, you don't want to be a JARP, which for our term is just another right-handed pitcher. So you got to have something that separates yourself, because there's a lot of us. I was one of those guys. There's something that we just can't. We're all similar. So for us, I think what makes this class different is like, we talk about Kiker. Kiker's 6 foot tall, but then you go to Rhett Britt, who's 6'5" with the potential chance to grow. You get to Tarkington and Rumbly, who are both bigger dudes. You're like, okay, how do they project? Just because now you're projecting the size with this stuff, And so once you start getting size on some guys, it kind of changes stuff. And then do you have an outlier? Like, who's got the elite spin? Like, who's got the best breaking ball? Who's got that? Who's got the ability to be a starter? Who's got plus command? And then all those grades start kind of putting together. And then, as I said, like we talked about it with Kiker a little bit, is who can actually be a starter is who's actually going to get paid. Like, a lot of you guys are like, you guys post all these things on the internet. I touched 94. Great. I'm happy for you. I'll probably like your tweet. But in the third inning, when you're 84 to 87, you're not a pro guy. And you're probably not a starter at this point in time. And that's like a part where, people that don't understand the game and haven't been in the scouting community get kind of confused. They're like, well, he threw harder. I said, yeah, but the other guy was 90-94 for 6 innings.
Right.
And this guy was 84-88 and sucking wind by the second. And that's a big difference. Like, I don't think these guys are going to have to deal with, but like in that second tier, you're kind of like, oh, the stuff's kind of similar. The metrics are kind of similar. Why aren't they in the top 10?
And it's one of those things too, when from an evaluation standpoint, if I'm a college guy, I like all of them. I'll take them. I'm going to figure out who I can develop best. And maybe I have them ordered that way, but I like all of them. From a pro standpoint, I like all of them. I don't have to make a decision right now. They may roll back around to me. If I have college guys that are in the same draft, I'm looking at that guy, and maybe the college guy doesn't have the complete total upside of one of these high school guys, but he's got a polished breaking ball. He has feel for a changeup already. And, we can fast track him because maturity wise, his body's able to handle the innings. He's able to handle the reps, and he may move through the system a little bit faster. It's a lot less risk on that guy. And so, really, if I've got a number on a pitcher, and maybe he's a 4 starter, maybe he's a 5 starter, that's going to be a good draft pick. Maybe he's an orgs type starter with a chance to get the big leagues. There's 30 of those guys in every organization, and they just train those guys to the big leagues. They face the league once, they train them back down. If they do something special in the big leagues, they stick. And if they don't, they bring the next dude up throwing 98. So it's about, I love what you said, it's about differentiation. What does your breaking ball do that's different? What does your fastball do that's different? What is your command? Is it different? Do you have something in your arsenal that is different? We have some guys on the list that do some different things. So when we're looking at this list here, there are some guys that are elite movers. There are some guys that have, some higher level spin metrics, and they're still developing. But we're still looking and going, okay, what is he going to be in 2 to 3 years versus the college guy where he's already there? I know what he is. And so if I'm spending a lot of money, there's less guesswork on the college guys. And so when we're putting our list together, and from the big board standpoint and what Shooter and Seifert are doing with our draft stuff, the risk starts to play into it. And now we've got to push some position players up the board a little bit because they're going to be drafted. There's less. We have a better feel for sometimes what's going to hitting is always risky in terms of trying to project it out. But left-handed hitters that can run, left-handed hitters that have shown zone discipline, those things play. Those things matter. Gunnar, for us, talking to our national guys, he had a very, very good set this summer in terms of, moving his profile up. He came to our pro case. He's bigger than what we thought he was. He's gotten taller. He's gotten stronger. He's put on weight. The swing has looseness. The swing has, some whip through there. There's more power than I was expecting. And I think, the way he moves, you can fringy project him in the middle of the field. And so that's kind of where we're at in terms of trying to put him there. But that's a right now thing. Again, we've done this. Zach, you and I went through it, and a couple other guys that are on staff, and I went through it, and some of our national guys went through it. We flipped this order 4 or 5 times. I can defend every order we put up. And I think, from our standpoint, that one of the things that differentiates us from, the pro guys are going through these and they got to lock in, who's 1, who's 2, who's 3. I'm bringing in my cross checker, who's 1, who's 2, who's 3, and that way they have a feel for that. For us, we got to cover 4 classes. We can't be every time these guys throw, we're not everywhere they are. So trying to figure that out, we kind of have them more in groups. Tier 1, tier 1A, tier 2, tier 2B, that type thing. So when you're looking through this, it's great. Somebody's number 1, somebody's number 1 pitcher, somebody's number 1 catcher, all that stuff. But more importantly is, where are they grouped? Are they grouped with other guys that they think? If you think you're a top 5 round guy and you're not grouped around other players that are potentially top 5 round guys, and you're not in our group, that says you're a top 5 round guy. That's kind of how, we kind of view these rankings. Aaron, your first time kind of going through this is, is it spinning the mind yet? Is it tougher than what you thought it was going to be as you're kind of looking at it you saw it outside looking in, now you're seeing it inside.
You piggyback kind of what you guys are saying, like, this, if you're drafting players to win high school games, this isn't the order.
No.
And that people don't really understand that. Kiker and Alshie probably go 1, 2 in either order. And then you just probably stacking pitchers left and right. But this isn't a high school draft to win a conference championship. Right. This is the overall rankings with projectability in there. And that's something that, the casual person doesn't really understand.
We're going to have the rankings release will be up later today. That rankings release will break down. Here's some guys that rose. Here's the shuffle at the top. Here's a preview of the top 10. Here's some newcomers. We do have some newcomers, some guys we saw this preseason that we had not seen. We had some players move into the area, be it with academies or change of high school or things of that sort. So we'll have all that going up. We'll have a bunch of information coming out on the 2026 class rankings. The 27s will follow ideally later this week. There's a lot of information to go through as we get through the 27s and 28s because of the number of players we did see this preseason. So trying to sift through that, trying to get those guys lined up and get the notes on them correctly. And then we'll release the 29s behind that. The 29s will have some growth to what their rankings are. Very, very talented class. The 29s are already making statements of seeing a couple of those guys as we've been out. Aaron, what I want to do now is turn our attention to, some of the things that we have seen already this spring. Been out and about and, trying to see games, trying to see players. We talked about some of the guys that have been to your area. And we'll start with, and I'm going to pull it right here. Let's stop sharing that. We're going to start with just the scout blog. And again, you have an interesting perspective because I think you've seen some of these from the outside looking in. You've seen some of the things that we've done with social media posts and getting information out. Now you're out watching games and helping us and getting this information out. How has it been a little bit different? Are there things that were a little bit shocking to you that maybe you didn't realize were happening as we were tracking these games and putting these scout blogs and lists and social media posts together?
The biggest adjustment was watching a hitter through a cell phone. And I still am not good at it. But no, I've thoroughly enjoyed being out and about. I've getting to see a bunch of kids. I didn't know who anybody at Charlotte Catholic was. I just heard they were good. I didn't know any of these other schools, even, going up to Rose. We didn't play Rose. They're not in my division. Didn't bother with them. Didn't care. Things like that. But now I'm getting a whole picture of the state and, how different parts of the state really do things differently. And I'm enjoying it quite a bit.
Yeah. So this past week, we saw over 20, I think it was close to 25 teams play. And then we saw, we wrote up over 50 players in this scout blog that should be being shown right now. And you can see on here, there's video, there's breakdown of what the pitchers were like, what we saw of the hitters. And now, obviously, we see a guy over an extended period of time. The scouting report's going to look different. It's going to be a lot more detailed. Pitchers, you can be a little bit more detailed than what you saw that night and kind of getting through their delivery. Hitters, we had a good write-up on Jackson Matthews up here underneath our pro follow section. And, one of the things was walked his first 4 at-bats on Friday. And
I'm holding the cell phone zoomed in as far as it can go for 5 at-bats. Like, if you know me, I'm not a picture guy, I'm not a video guy, but I was there.
But it's a great little piece. I mean, when we start tracking what Jackson's doing over the course of the year, his ability to stay in the strike zone and then hammer pitches when he gets balls in the strike zone, he did. He had, one at bat where he saw a strike and he singled to right on a ball that was hit hard. It was, and all that's written here in the report, and you're able to kind of go through it. And then we have video from the pro case where we can kind of see what the actions look like in BP and give people some feel there. Salerno, Connor threw opening day for Sun Valley in a power 25 matchup, was up to 95. Command wavered a little bit. I think he actually walked a guy, which is way outside of who he is. But really, really good. Zach, you were out a couple times. Who did you see that impressed you?
We had this guy named Tariq Stone. He's been to a couple events. My man got on top of a 90-mile-an-hour fastball, and, deposited it. I enjoyed him. I'm not going to lie. Bun's winning right now. They got some barbecue brisket nachos. So, I'm a big fan of Bun right now. I got
grade those out. Barbecue brisket nachos. They make the brisket
Coach,
right there?
9.5. 9.5 out of Bun. Legit real cheese. Now, better have cash. Just gonna let you know.
Okay.
Don't try and show up with card at Bun. Red hot dogs, ketchup, chili, mustard, onions. Coach, I'm gonna let you know now. The guy I went to go see didn't throw, and this is okay. Bun's food made up for it. And now they got a basketball hoop in case you want to shoot a little baskets in between innings, behind the field, kind of by the third base dugout. So got to see them. Got to see South Central, which is actually nice. I got to see Isaiah James play outfield, which watching him move, swing the bat well, that was kind of nice. Chase White was up to 90. So that was one game. And then I got –
Let's stay with that one. I'm going to show the Tariq swing here because we got that one. Look at you getting a home run swing.
We got that thing. This ball batted his eyes. Watch this thing. It goes boom.
He's got some bat speed, man. There's parts of his game that he's continued to clean and polish, but there is bat speed, and if he's on the barrel, he's got a chance to drive baseball. So he's a guy we've seen a couple different times. And then you saw Chase White is a 28, so I'm going to roll that. How was he?
He was good. It was 87, 90 most of his outing. Breaking ball kind of wavered a little bit, but he's got that fastball that kind of jumps on hitters. It's just I know he's a catcher too, so he's kind of got that short arm swing, and that fastball just rides up in the zone. He can just get hitters out pretty quickly. A lot of uncomfortable swings on fastballs. Breaking balls like 75 to 79. There was a couple decent ones in there, but a lot of which he was kind of missing high. I don't know, just maybe it was one of those outings because he had a really good breaking ball at the All-State East.
Yeah, here he is at the All-State East. And so one of the things we'll try to do with this scout blog is we'll try to get the game video up there. But if we've got recent video on guys, giving you a little bit of an extended look, because obviously one swing here, one at bat there. One of the things Reimer's done a good job with it is at bats is getting some takes in there as well. So you see a take, then you see a swing. You get a feel for what the leverage is like, what his timing and rhythm's like, just outside of just the one swing. So I kind of like that. I've incorporated that to some of what I'm doing. But yeah, Chase's it's electric whip twitch. It played behind the plate. It played with a bat. It played on the mound. I think it'll be interesting to find. He's still a sophomore, so he's got time, but trying to figure out where he's going to be. Obviously, if the bat goes, that's going to lead the prospect. He's going to be, those are harder to find. There's a dime a dozen, power, arm strength right-handers. They got to be able to do something different. But obviously at this level, and even at the college level, that ability to be firm with a fastball, to spin something in the zone is going to allow him to a little bit less risk with guys putting him on the roster. But I think the bat has a chance to lead the prospect. And if he can swing it, the arm strength plays behind the plate with some ease as well. So, Reimer, give me a name. Somebody impressed you in the games that you saw with the Charlotte guys coming through and the Wilmington, really good coverage out there, the Wilmington teams.
Yeah, the Brandon Bush kid, that's your boy.
Yeah.
He is now 4 home runs in a row, 4 games, 4 home runs in a row. The one time I put my cell phone down, I think he broke up the no-hitter from Myers Park, maybe the second hit of the game, but right center field, no doubter. And I'm cussing up a storm in the press box because I had every other one of his ABs. But that kid's he's doing it right now. Had a few question marks on him early because we played against him. But, he always saw really good arms. So I really wasn't sure where he was going to be, but he's doing his thing so far this year.
Here's my take on Brandon, and here's one of the things I struggle with. We always wanted balance. We wanted left-handed hitters and right-handed hitters. We want a lot of left-handed hitters. It takes away and neutralizes right-handed slider. Enough right-handed hitters that can't do that with the left-handed arm, so it's harder for teams to stack left-handed sliders on you. And so we wanted left-handed hitters. We wanted athletic guys. And then, if you're a team competing to be in a regional, the difference between teams competing to be in regionals and teams competing to be in Omaha are teams that have pro big league prospect, not just pro prospects, big league prospects, which means they have the frame, they have the projection, they have the athleticism. If Brandon Bush was a left-handed hitter, and I've argued this with our national guys, would he be in the top 100 nationally? And I think you could make a case for it. The production needs to be there. We need to see the production at the plate, which we're seeing now. 4 games, 4 home runs. He's going to be our player of the week this week. That should be released by the time this podcast comes out. So hopefully I'm not jumping the gun on that. But it's the athleticism. It's the rhythm in the swing. Now it's the production. It's his ability to run. It's his ability to throw. He does so many good things. If he was a left-handed hitter, he would be higher on boards right now. That's going to get neutralized over the next year because at some point we have to look at it. And Zach, if I'm wrong, correct me and go, if he looks the part and he's doing the part, he may be the part.
Yeah, I mean, it's as I said, he's got the stigma. He's a 6-foot right-hand hitting outfielder. Well, there's not many better hitters in his class right now than him, regardless of what he is, regardless of what position he is. Now, obviously, if you can get him in the center field and he keeps picking up his speed a little bit, life becomes a little easier. If he ends up being a power hitting left fielder, right fielder, the thing is, the dude can hit. And now he's starting to he used to just show power in batting practice. Well, that's one thing. There's a lot of guys, we always talk about this BP power versus real power. Well, he's starting to have some real power. By the end of the year, he might have double-digit homers, and there's very few guys in the state. And I don't know what A they are now because they changed everything. But they could be 6A, 7A. There might not be 3 guys in the state with double-digit homers. And so he's got a chance to be that. I don't know where he wants to go to school, but he should be able to pick.
Yeah, he's wide open right now. I know there's interest. And schools we've been contacted by several since the pro case. And I think, in this new day and age, these guys get a chance to actually get to know the coaches and figure out, what's the best option for them going to be instead of who made the offer first. So excited to see where he's going to be. I think that's Aaron. That's a really good player to kind of pick out. I'm going to piggyback off you. I got a chance to go up and see Pro 5 and ECA play. I saw several good arms. Caden Scott threw really well after being our preseason All-State East. He was better in game than he was at the East, which been a month or so, kind of continue to get primed up. We saw Lawson Tyndall catcher for ECA was really good. And I am looking for a left-handed hitter. I may have him marked wrong. Motley, I may have him in 27. I'll flip that. That's the case. But Trendon Motley, who, he's a national guy. Here he is. I got him in the 28s. I think I got him marked with the 27s, which I'll move him down here at some point. But, he's a physical athlete. He moves well. I did not see a ton from him defensively. Just not a ton of action. But the left-handed bat's different. It's proportional build. It's an athletic build. There's strength in there. I mean, he looks like a grown man from a distance. When you get up on him, you realize, boy, he's just a 28, and there's still more to come. And then the ball comes off his bat different. Playing with a lot of older guys, and he didn't really square a ball up in terms of just punishing the ball, but the ball sounds different off his bat. And there's good rhythm in there. Obviously, again, left-handed hitter, and trying to figure out where he's going to be. He's going to figure out where the barrel is because there's enough rhythm in there that it's going to come, and I think it's going to come fairly quickly. Top end power, with average hitability, is going to put him in the top, part of draft consideration for this class. So excited to see where he can be. We start talking about where our 2028 and the future games are going to be. He's a guy that's going to be in the mix to make future games team if we get him to an event, because we'll select all the players for the future games, for the super sophomore games, senior future games, off of having ID'd guys and getting metrics on guys at our events. So we've not seen him yet this year, so we need to do that. And I'm excited to kind of continue to follow what he's doing, because it's a name that's been floating around. It's a name I've seen in tournament play. Putting my eyes on him here early this spring. He was extremely impressive in a couple of at-bats against, really good pitching from ECA. So, good day there. And I love those days. I know, Reimer, you're getting ready to go do one here, I think today, where we have the ability to see 3-4 games in a day. So I got 2 games with Pro 5 and ECA, shot off, saw Southern Alamance and Providence Grove, got home, and my body was not ready for that. I was wrecked on Saturday. I couldn't move. So I was like, okay, I got to get in scouting shape. That's a real thing. I don't know what was happening to me, but I got to get back to it. So excited for that. Who are you planning to see this week?
I'm going to go check out Coastal Christian and Wilmington Christian tonight. And then I'm going to follow it up, and I'm going to go watch North Brunswick and New Hanover. My first time getting to see Stacks on the other side of the fence. So
coming off a perfect game.
Yep. We're going to see North Brunswick. They have not really been challenged yet.
Yeah.
So we'll see how good they can be.
Zach, who are you looking forward to seeing here in the next couple of weeks?
So I got Conley and Gibbons on Saturday. Now I'm going to go ahead and throw this out. Disclaimer now. Friday is open. So if you guys got some good food and you want some good company on a Friday night, I can gladly show up to anywhere. We'll go east of Greensboro, not quite to Wilmington. So if you guys got food, now it's got to be something special. I will gladly sacrifice my Friday night, and I will go do a food review and a game review at whatever home field has the best food available.
I'm going to tell you what, we don't do a whole lot of viral things here, and just gotcha journalism, gotcha media, and we're trying to kind of, hey, this is who we are, and this is how we're going about it, and this is how we get to things, and we do things wrong, we do things right. That is interesting. If that doesn't get play on our social channels right there, we're going to put that out.
That's fine. Put it out, Coach.
For Friday.
Like where your head's at. I can get
Friday's wide open. Saturday's taken. I'm out Saturday. Got plans. But Friday night, I need something to do. So let's see who's got the best offer.
All right. So if you're watching this, we want comments. I think this is how we do it. You go comments, likes, subscriptions, subscribe, hit all the buttons, and then tell us where we need to send Zach on Friday. And he wants a good game, he wants good players, he wants good food. If you hit all 3 of those things, you may see a Zach Borowski sighting at your game on Friday.
You might see that and so we might give you a reward. If I get all 3, we'll probably give you a reward or something.
We can work that in.
We can work out a prep baseball hat or something.
I'm in. We just got to make sure eligibility wise, I don't want to ruin anybody's amateurism on a giveaway or anything like that. But
21 and over. We'll get somebody 21 and over a hat. Or under 9.
Whoever gives you the food gets the hat.
Yeah, we'll give them a hat. We got some camo. Somebody, listen, they got good food. They got like camo. We got a camo hat somewhere.
We got those 2 green hats. You guys are. I'm rocking the one from Lake Point that was popular last year. You guys got the popular hats from this year.
That's okay, Coach. We'll make it work.
There you go. Gentlemen, I appreciate you guys hanging out. Went through a bunch of stuff. I'm sure we're going to get a bunch of questions. Send them to us.
Yeah.
We're here to answer questions. We're here to help. So for Zach Borowski, for Aaron Reimer, I'm Brandon Hall. We'll see you guys at the field.